probably in the next couple of minutes, we're gonna talk about the quarterback competitions that are going on across the Big Ten Conference. Ohio State obviously have a big one. Michigan has one going on. We talked a little bit about Michigan in the first hour. We're going to get to Ohio State here about 15 minutes from now as we're into our second hour. And Isaiah Hole is going to join us in about 30 minutes from Wolverines Wire to give us maybe a clearer picture on where Jim Harbaugh is leaning for his starting quarterback. Those are some of the issues inside this conference. And Matt, it's now our great pleasure to welcome in R.J. Young from Fox Sports, who's here with us to kind of talk about the national perspective here as the Big Ten gets set to open the football schedule 15 days from today with Nebraska and Illinois. RJ, welcome.
Rhett, Matt, how you guys doing?
Oh, we're great, man. Thank you. Thanks for being with us here on this Friday evening. And RJ, just from your perspective right now, where do you feel like the Big Ten kind of sits with all the talk of realignment going on, with Ohio State, kind of carrying the banner for this conference the last few years into the college football playoff? Where do you kind of sit with your thoughts on this on the Big Ten as we get set for another season here?
You're sitting pretty, because as I look around, who would be value added to the Big Ten starts with Notre Dame, kind of ends with Notre Dame. Right? Outside of that, you're really reaching into parts of the country that you don't really have any connection, right? Like I've heard Clemson, for instance, and I'm going, for what? For why? For whom? For what? No, like outside of Notre Dame, I don't see anybody that is attractive to the Big Ten. And quite frankly, I don't know that the Notre Dame is that attractive to the Big Ten. I know that Notre Dame enjoys its independent status, and I think you're in a good spot here. Stay with your 14. Stay with the teams that you have. Large fan bases, even down to somebody who is struggling like Nebraska, who you alluded to, is going to have an opportunity to perhaps get a win. But if they get a loss to Illinois, we're in a wholly different ball game there, so I'm interested in that game.
Yeah,
but I think you're in a good spot. I think you're in a good spot.
Well, RJ, just going off of Rhett's question there, I mean, obviously with the addition of Maryland and Rutgers a few years back was simply just to got to get into the New York market, to get into the Washington, D.C. market. I mean, is that what they could be thinking if they want to add a few more teams potentially, or they want to get down to UCF, get into Florida, or they want to try to add a team from Texas, like a TCU or a Texas Tech? Is that something that you could potentially see in the Big Ten doing?
No, and the reason I say that is, do you want to be the Big Ten or do you want to be the National College Football Conference, right? I think that's a really interesting question, and I don't think that the Big Ten wants to do that. Big Ten's been around, and I say this repeatedly, since the Olympics, right? Both the Olympics and the Big Ten began competition in 1896. It's a pretty good track record. You've got some great programs like Ohio State, everybody knows, but also Michigan. And then you'll add in Minnesota and what they've been here lately, to say nothing of what they were doing post-World War II. Nebraska has been a juggernaut in the past, but if you get them up to speed, they'll be okay. Iowa's carrying their banner. Penn State is Penn State. I think that's been a win for them for almost 30 years now. So much so that when I talked to James Franklin, I asked him, who is the rival? Or can you tell me 3 things about your rival? And he said, we don't really have a rival. We've been in the Big Ten for, this amount of time. And then he goes on waxing poetic about the land-grant trophy, which they play for against Michigan State. My point here is, I think you're fine. Be the Midwestern Conference du jour. Be the Midwestern Power 5. And then see how this stuff shakes out. You're in a great spot here.
Talking with R.J. Young of Fox Sports. R.J., as I mentioned Ohio State, to kind of open this segment as well. And it's always kind of interesting to me to talk about a team that has not announced the starting quarterback, and their quarterback will not have played a meaningful snap before they take their, week 1 first snap against Minnesota this year, and is still, a top 5 team in college football. That's just how good Ohio State is. In your mind, does it matter who the quarterback is for Ohio State? And are they still in, the landslide favorites to win this conference?
I think Matt would agree with me, Rhett, in saying it always matters who the quarterback is. But also, to your point, when you say meaningful football, none of those guys have thrown a pass, right? And Ryan Day was also quick to point that out when I spoke with him. None of those guys have thrown a pass, and he would have rather that not been the case going into this season. But I put it this way. The guy that is not going to start is the highest rated recruit in Ohio State history. That's Quinn Ewers. He's going to arrive at campus in a couple of days. The next guy on the depth chart, probably going to be third string, is Kyle McCord, 5-star quarterback coming out of Philadelphia. The next two guys include Jack Miller and CJ Stroud. Jack Miller holds Arizona State passing records for passing yardage and TDs. And then CJ Stroud out of Rancho Cucamonga, California, goes from 860th in the country in February 2019 to number 42 overall in August 2020. He was the Elite 11 Finals MVP. Just take a look at Elite 11 Finals alumni. They include guys like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Jameis Winston to start, and you'll see what that means for him. I think you're in a good spot, not just because you have all these other pieces around them, which you guys have talked about, I'm sure, and will continue to talk about, but it's also because the talent is there. All Ryan Day has to do is figure out which one of these guys is ready-made to jump into his Formula One car that is capable of winning Formula One championships and keep it on the track. I think they're in a good spot.
Yeah, Ryan Day does such a fantastic job of not really preparing, not just the quarterbacks, preparing them to play well week in and week out, but really the whole offense. I mean, those guys, they just don't replace guys, right? They replace them, and it's like those guys already have experience. That's what makes, Ohio State so special, and that's why those quarterbacks perform, I think, so well week in and week out, year in and year out. But you mentioned Quinn Ewers. Obviously forgoes his senior year. He reclassifies. Is this something that will be the new norm moving forward in high school football, RJ?
I couch it in this way. How many guys do you know had the capability to graduate early and play football? It's a very short list. Most of the guys that I know that I went to college with and went to high school with were waiting on the NCAA clearinghouse to tell them that they were okay, that they weren't just going to be a partial qualifier. They were just trying to get those English credits, those science credits, those math credits so they could go play college football. This is a one-off, and you'll see other one-offs. Tony Grimes did this last year with North Carolina, and you'll see this among 5-star talents because they'll be told, you're a 5-star talent. Let's get you some summer classes so that we put you ahead so that you don't have to worry about so much of school and get to play football and have fun playing football. I don't see this as regular for anybody, let alone even 5 stars. I think that Ewers saw an opportunity, A, for him to get to Ohio State early, but B, he can make a little bit of money. Like, the part of this that people don't speak about is his parents looked at the Texas legislature and said, wait a second, you're going to prevent my kid from not just making money, but also having some equity in a company as an 18-year-old. And those of us that are adults, we know what equity means, right? You grow with the company. Your share grows with the company. And you're going to prevent him from having that? No, we'll just skip this and we'll go to Ohio State. That is a card they had to play. I don't know that there are a lot of kids that are going to have that card to play or be nearly as talented as Ewers, because I need to say this out loud. He is one of 6 players, according to the composite, who has achieved a 1.000 rating, according to the composite. Other guys include Vince Young, Rashawn Gary, Jadeveon Clowney. You get where I'm going with this, right? This is not a regular kid.
Right.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I'll be interested to see if he ever plays a snap at Ohio State. Right. Could this be a Justin Fields situation, right? Where if CJ Stroud wins the job and, plays well this year, are you just going to tell Quinn you're going to have to sit for the next 3 years until CJ is gone? It just doesn't seem like something we're going to see in college football as transfer portal has been lighting up these last few years. Let's keep the Ohio State theme here going, RJ. Talk with RJ Young of Fox Sports. RJ, if we're saying that Ohio State is the defending Big Ten champions, is the favorite once again, who do you see as the biggest challenger?
It's a very interesting question, right? Because there's a number of things that I take into account here. The first is coaching continuity. The second is quarterbacks. And then who did you add to make yourself better? And when you're looking around at challengers to Ohio State, it's difficult, man, because I think the best teams that they're going to face are already in their division. I like Indiana. They feel good about themselves. For me, as a media member, I always wait to see who brings their quarterbacks to media day, because that tells me a lot about what you think about your program and what you think about your chances. They brought Michael Penix. And not only did they bring Michael Penix, they brought also Micah McFadden. And they also brought Ty Freifogel. Indiana feels like they got a shot this year, and they have something to prove. I see the same thing with Penn State, right? I enjoy seeing Mike Yurcich have an opportunity to go to work with a veteran quarterback and a veteran backfield. And yeah, you lose Pat Freiermuth, but you still got Jahan Dotson over there, who I think is going to turn up. I think the biggest challenger to them is going to be in their division. But outside of that, the West champ, Northwestern has as great a shot as anybody, but I want to see what Minnesota looks like, especially with their additions here of late. Tanner Morgan coming out seems to feel like he has the guys at wide receiver to help him out. I think Wisconsin is the safe bet, and I understand people saying that out loud because Wisconsin has been in the Big Ten West here recently. But I would not be shocked to find that Muhammad Ibrahim comes back and shows everybody, no, I'm actually the best tailback in this conference. And if they get a shot, they beat Wisconsin, you see Minnesota there. So right now, I'm willing to say that Minnesota has the best opportunity to show up in the Big Ten championship to face perhaps an Ohio State.
Oh, man. Well, RJ, you did not mention Iowa. I'm high on Iowa this year. I think Iowa has the chance to do it out of the West. Look, I understand they're losing guys. They're losing Nixon. They lose a few other guys from the D-line. They lose their offensive tackle, Jackson and Coy. But they do such a good job of replacing talent on the offensive line and on the defense side of the ball. And it's very quiet, too, right? Those guys are well prepared. They understand the scheme. They understand what Kirk Ferentz wants out of them. I think a guy like Spencer Petras at the quarterback spot has done a fantastic job, at least in those last few weeks of the season. I think he really found out who he was as a quarterback. What are your thoughts on Iowa this year? You think they can make any noise in the West?
Of course, it's Iowa, right? In that I expect Kirk Ferentz to go win at least 8 games every single year. I didn't see enough from Petras to really think that that's the guy. And again, I said, did you bring your quarterback to media day? They didn't bring Spencer. They brought Tyler Linderbaum, right? Who we all acknowledge perhaps the best offensive lineman in that conference. But offensive linemen don't win me championships. You know, like that's my problem here. If I get to see out of Spence what I expect to see out of Spence, fine, cool. I will ride that Iowa train with you. But right now, Iowa's still the place where they produce the most corn in the United States, not the place where I expect a Big Ten champion to be crowned.
Interesting thought. I mean, what a way to open up the Big Ten season for both those teams, for Iowa and Indiana. A
100%.
Major crossover battle to open the season, man. That is going to be must-see TV for sure with both of those programs. You know, with the expectations that Indiana's dealing with, and Iowa's just kind of always in the mix. It certainly felt like. Where do you sit, RJ, with Michigan? And another one of those teams dealing with a quarterback competition. You know, if it's not going to be Cade McNamara, there's certainly some other options with Tech transfer Alan Bowman. But where do you sit with Jim Harbaugh and this Michigan Wolverine squad after a disappointing 2020?
When I talked to Jim Harbaugh, it felt to me like he's going to give Cade McNamara a chance to be the guy. Like, he likes him. He enjoys the way that he plays football. He enjoys the way that he leads. The most talented guy on the team is, for me, obviously, J.J. McCarthy, right, coming out of IMG Academy, but also has shown that he can lead a team and he can take over a team. And his coach down at IMG said, I essentially gave that dude the keys to the offense and said, go run what you want to run, and we were pretty doggone good. I like Alan Bowman, though, right, because I got to see him in the Big 12. I live in Oklahoma. I watch a lot of Big 12 football. That dude will sling it. It's about injuries for him, right? If he stays healthy, he's got a shot. So I think you got a guy that's ready-made to go in there if you don't like Cade McNamara at some point during the season. But in regard to Jim Harbaugh, it's about beating Ohio State for them. Like, Warren Manuel got a really great deal on Jim Harbaugh going forward, in large part because of how they played 2020. And, you know, it wasn't a secret. He was flirting with other jobs, but they got him at a discount, and they got him at a contract that says, hey, we will pay you for what you win. So you keep what you kill, which I think is a different sort of incentive for football coaches, and I want to see what Jim Harbaugh does with that. But you got a new defensive coordinator in Mike McDonald, right? You elevated Sherrone Moore next to Josh Gaddis. We'll see what that looks like. You lost Mo Linguist to Buffalo for a good job. For me, it ain't about whether or not they can play defense. It's about whether or not they can find a quarterback that can run the offense. They're going to run the football. That's fine. That's okay. I get that. But unless you got a quarterback that I can trust to go out there and get me 300 bills and 4 passing touchdowns in a game, you ain't going to beat Ohio State. And for Michigan fans, that's what it's about. If you beat that team, you get a lot of goodwill. If you lose to that team and you go, say, 9-3, nobody cares because he's done that before. So that's what I would set my sights on. I know that football coaches hate talking about beating one team. But doggone it, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, that's the only team I want to beat all season.
I'll never understand how Michigan can't really find a quarterback year in and year out. you know what I mean? Somebody that's consistent, somebody that can play well. I can't. I just can't.
It was like LSU before Joe Burrow. You know, it was the same thing. Like, why couldn't a team like that, a school like that, find a quarterback? So.
RJ, last question for me, and it's staying with Michigan. Appreciate you taking the time to join us today, man. Jim Harbaugh, you mentioned the contract extension. Why do I feel like there's more pressure on Mike Macdonald and Josh Gaddis now rather than Jim Harbaugh?
I think you feel that because Jim Harbaugh is going to be here, right? And Mike Macdonald's coming from the NFL. Right. He's coming from a place in which Baltimore was good the last couple of years, right? And John Harbaugh was not exactly happy about losing Mike Macdonald to Michigan. So there's that. But also Josh Gaddis comes from Alabama, right? And when I talk with Mike Locksley about this, he's very loud about, yes, I coach with the best. I was offensive coordinator for the best. I learned how to do this from the best. He leans so hard on his Alabama credentials because they're that meaningful to the rest of us. He knows that in a way that a lot of coaches might run from that comparison. Josh Gaddis has that on him, and he was the wide receiver coach, co-offensive coordinator when Mike Locksley was at Alabama. If Mike Locksley gets Maryland going in a way that Michigan can't, we're going to know who won that one, right? And I don't think that Josh Gaddis wants to go down as the Michigan offensive coordinator who ain't good enough to get his program ahead of Maryland, right? And I mentioned why Mike Macdonald, but I'm also looking at Jim Harbaugh and going, these are your guys, right? You let go Don Brown, he's at Arizona. You got to figure it out, and you got to let these guys cook because your reputation is now pinned to them.
RJ Young of Fox Sports here with us on this Friday edition of Big Ten Today. RJ, have a great weekend, man. Thanks for being with us.
Rhett, Matt, appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.